So, do you realize that you are being programmed? We are being programmed. Either you live a life by design or it will be by default. Someone's going to assign you the lifestyle if you don't choose one. So I'm here with my man Jay Swallow, fellow Louisiana boy. He's moved on one direction. I moved on a different direction. We've got some similar backgrounds and whatnot, but I wanted to have him on the show to talk with you guys about programming of the brain, the mind. And of course, it can be reprogrammed. Some of us think that we're stuck in one way and one rut. This is the way my family is. This is what we do. This is how things from people from this area. This is how we interact, and this is how we do life. But we can break the program. We can break the matrix. If you want to, a lot of people say that the Matrix was really a documentary.
Mm.
Kind of believe that in a whole lot of different ways. So my man Jay, what's happening, brother?
Hey, man, good to see you. Appreciate you having me on. I'm excited about the chat.
Likewise. So, like we said, both from Louisiana. I'm from an area that's a little more popular. This area called New Orleans, but there's this area called Sulphur. That's you can almost say it's Texas. It's kind of almost Texas because you're right there on the
We're
side
close.
there.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, we're
and-
close.
and- yeah, real closer to Texas than New Orleans. We're almost 4 hours apart, but that's where things started for you. A quick story before I get into telling the story. Sulphur, for some reason, happened to be the same time where we had to get gas a lot, driving back and forth. So it's about a 9 hour drive from Marble Falls, Texas, to New Orleans. In Sulphur, there's this seafood spot, and it's called Golden something. But like it's a banger. It looked
Mm.
like a little hole in the wall, but it's in Sulphur. Like we try to time our trips so we can stop there as often as possible. So to me, that's the most popular place in Sulphur from my experiences. But
That's probably it.
that's probably about it.
That's probably
Yeah,
about it. Yeah.
small town too. So
Oh, yeah.
Jay, tell us a little bit about your story, man.
Yeah, man. So grew up in Sulphur, Louisiana, as you mentioned. Grew up kind of a rough upbringing, got in a lot of trouble growing up. Grew up around a lot of chaos and drugs and alcohol and all those things. So you mentioned Sulphur is a really small town off of Interstate 10. There's a lot of drugs there. It's passing straight from, Houston to down to Baton Rouge, New Orleans. And so it's just a little town with a lot of opportunity to get in a lot of trouble. And I was a product of my environment. I grew up around all that stuff. And so very young age, man, I got hung up in Sulphur. And basically by the age 10, I was smoking pot on a regular basis. By 13, I tried every hard drug that you could pretty much do with the exception of a handful. By 16, I had 3 felony drug charges, all really serious charges, and was sentenced juvenile life and spent some time in jails, rehabs, institutions, things like that before I decided to turn my life around and start to get things on track. And so I love talking about programming because I was a result of that, right? I grew up with a welfare mentality. I grew up thinking the world owed me something. The world wasn't fair. Money didn't grow on trees. We're not supposed to have it easy, all these things. And like, I watch my family suffer on every degree from, addiction to health to whatever else you can imagine. We were in a bad spot, right? And so I adopted a lot of those belief systems about life and money and politics and religion and all the other things that weren't serving me. And it was a direct result in me going and doing the same things that I watched and said I would never do. And so like the whole pinnacle for me with change and transformation has been me understanding first that I have been programmed and that programming has not been serving me. And then even at a higher level is that you can change it. And so I've
Right.
set out to do that over the last, I don't know, 15 years of really being heavily involved in personal development to understand the psychology of that whole piece of programming. And then how do you change it?
Absolutely, man. Appreciate your story, and it's something that comes up for me is you think when you think drug lords or drug trafficking and things of that sort. Most of the time, we go to major cities. You think New
Mm-hmm.
Orleans, you think Chicago, New York, you think these major cities, LA, these places, but it's these side places. Like right now, I know I live in Marble Falls, which is an hour out of Austin, more rural area, and like crystal meth is like huge. It's a
Everywhere,
huge thing
bro.
in here because you can cook it and people can hide a lot better and different things like that. That's something I wasn't aware of. And as you said, like coming through I-10, Baton Rouge to Houston, that's a big areas. So there's like stop offs there. And I didn't understand until I moved here. We have a road, Highway 281, that
Mm-hmm.
literally goes from Canada to Mexico.
Yep.
I didn't realize, I never said this is a really like big drug, throughway, and it's something
Yep.
I didn't even understand and realize that. So that's something, just awareness, and like something you were talking about, even coming up, being a product of your environment, and when you are either told something great about yourself or told something bad about yourself, if it comes from reputable sources, so you know, like your mom, dad, uncles,
Mm-hmm.
aunts, people around you who you looked up to, and were giving you bad advice, they're showing you the wrong thing, and it's hard to break those chains when it comes down to people that you look up to and they're giving you this advice. It seems so hard to break those strongholds and what you think is true, but they're lies coming from the wrong places. So were
Yep.
there some individuals, like, or the situations that you recognize, like, I had to break away from the people that I love because they were not serving me for who I wanted to become?
Yeah, man. So listen, everything's a story, right?
Mhm.
The way that we show up, the way that we feel, the way that we interact with the world, it's all based on stories. And it's a story about who we are, what we're worth, what we're capable of, what we've been told. And those stories come from, if we're not careful, they're just ingrained in us by other people. And so we allow someone else in our family or teachers or whatever who have their own self limiting beliefs and their own psychological hangups project their fears and their insecurities on us. And
Right.
so my mom didn't know that she could live without drugs. My mom
Mhm.
didn't know that she could live without welfare. My family didn't understand that it's not the government's responsibility to take care of them, it's their own responsibility. Like all of these things, that was their truth. Their truth was the government's supposed to deliver a box of food to us. The government's supposed to give us free health care, like whatever. That was their truth. And so of course they meant well and they
Right.
ingrained these things in me. And so that's what it is, man. At every level, no matter the growth that I've had or businesses I've started or situations I've been in or relationships or whatever, the success of those things is always based on the story.
Mhm.
And so if you're in a place, and if I find myself in a place where I'm not happy with where I'm at, it's because of a story.
Come
And
on.
I can go back and audit that, right? Which is really powerful. Like there's ways that you can challenge that story and recreate that story to be meaningful and to serve a better purpose. And so that's all it is, man. It's like everything is psychology, everything is perspective, it's mindset, it's stories. And I know a lot of our folks are listening, probably listen to this if they're a part of your audience or mine, they're fitness people. We
Mhm.
both own gyms, and I have a decent audience of men that I work with, and I know you do too. And it's like we have all this societal pressure to be a certain way, but
Right.
what's working in society, I would argue, is not the way. Like being focused on football all week and neglecting your family and doing these things that like becoming frail and out of shape. And I know that's harsh, but like when you look at the men population and what's happening in society, it's not the way. But those are stories that they've adopted because that's what everybody else is doing. And so we just kind of find ourselves moving in that direction. So I guess the big takeaway for all of that has been for me is like, hey, at any moment, if I don't like the fruit of my life, I can challenge the story,
Mhm.
change the story, and it'll produce a different fruit.
Absolutely. I love that, because I teach the same thing, as far as the story you tell is the truth, it's the life you live.
Yep.
It starts at the story. What stories are you adopting and taking in from other folks? What story are you telling about yourself? What story are you saying about your past, your present, and your future matters so much. It
Yep.
matters like into so many different levels of self. I got Victoria on. I was wondering, yeah, if you watch it live, definitely. If you have questions, the girl Victoria, who actually has a very similar story of
Oh,
overcoming
nice.
addiction. She's committed her life to Christ, and she is living, all in on that, and just a pillar in this community too as well. So I'm glad you're
Let's
here,
go.
Victoria. Yeah, so it's a story you tell about what's possible. As we talk about the personal development, all the books that we both have behind us, the things that
That's right.
the conferences and things we're going to, and how did you get involved with fitness? And I'm curious to know about that, because I know when I look back at it, I actually was kind of a mindset coach for myself and even for my athletes and the people that I train. And how does this correlate to personal development that you see for yourself and for your clients?
Yeah, so when I was 17, I was in a facility because of my drug charges, and I was introduced to a guy. He came in, and he was kind of like a, in those programs they encourage you to get involved in like an NA or an AA, Alcoholics Anonymous program or something,
Hmm.
some kind of support group. And so even me as a teen at that time, they were really encouraging me to do that, knowing that I was going to get out of that facility soon. I'd be back potentially in the same environment. Well, this guy came in, and he was a couple years older than me, very similar story, but he had been clean for a little bit. And I was actually in a different part of the country, or a different part of the state. I was in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay.
So they shipped me up there. Well, that dude also, he was from Baton Rouge. And so he had been shipped up there and gone through a similar program and was having success. So anyway, he came in and he was kind of mentoring some of the kids in there. And man, him and I just clicked and we became friends, and he started bringing me to the gym. And in fact, when I got out of that facility, I moved in with him
Mm.
and a handful of other people, all that were in recovery and kind of trying to get their head together. And man, the dude loved to work out. And so he introduced me to fitness. And it was the first time that I could do something that was not a drug that would give me a similar feeling of relief, right? Like just for a little bit, it would clear
Yes.
the air and clear my mind and allow me to kind of have some clarity. And so, man, I fell in love with it, right? Having an addictive type of personality, I fell in love with it, and I engaged in fitness regularly. And some time went on. I was introduced to a network marketing company back in the day, which really turned me on to personal development. But I will say, fitness is the foundation of personal development. Like, I don't care what people say. I will argue this till my death. You don't have to do fitness, but you're never going to be as good as you could have been in any area had you been doing fitness. Had you been
Absolutely.
engaging in physical fitness and training your body to be a weapon or to be strong or to be capable. And so that's just a fundamental thing for me. And so kind of years went on, I got into personal development, got into psychology, started learning about, hey, maybe the way I'm thinking is not getting me where I want to go. Started making some changes, and eventually like really started seeing how introducing fitness to other people could also help them. And then of course, we have some things where you start working out with someone like the guy did with me. All of a
Mhm.
sudden they get off medications, they start feeling better, they put down these bad habits. I'm like, man, this is powerful stuff. And that's when I really started getting a passion and like, well, maybe I can make something of this as a career. And that was years ago, man. Started doing a little training, ran a LA Fitness for a while, and eventually started my business.
That's awesome, man. It's
Yeah.
and we can probably look back over all the training and the clients and see the maturity and changes and folks getting off of off of drugs, off of meds, off of
Yeah.
all kind of things. And I can remember one time I had I don't know if you've seen some of the most common denominators of folks who don't stick with the program. And a lot of times you think it's maybe age, it might be an injury, it might be um, finances, whatever it may be. But the common thing that I found was folks that smoke.
Mm.
Folks that smoke, for some reason, it's been harder for them to stick more than anybody else out there. And I can remember I had one lady who smoked 2 packs a day.
Hmm.
She called me 3 hours after the workout and she says, "Coach, I don't know what's going on, but I haven't craved a cigarette yet." I
Hmm.
said, because you're high from the workout.
Yeah.
Just what you said, the endorphin release, the hormones, all the things, the therapy. There's so many times that I've come through a workout, going through grief, going through trauma, and I'm going through the workout through tears because
Mm.
it's therapy. And you and I know this is iron therapy. Whereas when life hits the fan, you might want to go to that vice, but you go to the workout. You show up anyway. In so many different ways where I've, you know, as me, working with folks and seeing where they are and like going through life's trauma. Sometimes, I need to take a break. And one lady go through a really, really tough situation when lost her son to suicide,
Mm.
and she wanted to take a break. And I said, I can't let you. I don't care if you don't pay me, but I can't let you be alone. The first thing in the Bible, when God says it's not good for man to be alone. And what do men typically do when life hits, it hits the fan? We isolate. and we
Mm.
try to be alone and we don't communicate. So there's so many different ways that you get into an atmosphere, whether it's one workout partner, whether it's with a group of people, whatever it may be, but you stay in that routine of strengthening yourself. For me, I was the little guy. I was a 4'7", 82-pound freshman. Never trained until I graduated from high school and started a little bit. One of my friends who always had these huge triceps, and to this day, he's still one of the guys that's in shape. My boy Cedric is like one of my biggest inspiration. Him and Kyle were the first person, people that I started doing this with. But all I knew was hard work and work ethic to do those things before fitness. And like this makes it easier to push
Mm.
big people around, and I can move around. I feel confident. I feel stronger being, a towering 5'9" that I am. There's a part of that that says like I can move people. I can do these things.
Yep.
And here we coming up on in next month is my 30th high school reunion, where I'm going to be the top 5, if not top 3 fittest guys there.
Yep.
That's a different thing. This is, as we talk about, this is a different flex. You can't buy these. Now you can go get plastic surgery, but you can't buy the body. You can't buy the health of the body. You might get the aesthetics of it, but as a part of this, that it's even especially men, they want to get the nice car, the house, the boat, all these different things. But the big flex is, can you actually sculpt your body to become a weapon, as you said earlier, to be something that for me is being a cool grandfather, meaning I want to be able to play with my grandkids when they come. They're not here yet, and I ain't looking for them to come no time soon. But when they come, I want to be ready, physically, financially, mentally. I have the freedom to be wherever they are. So those are some of the goals, but this is the vessel that carries, that carries the anointing, that carries the calling, that carries everything that we're talking about as far as our legacy. It carries the things that we're supposed to move forward, and it carries the message to the people that we're called to serve and called to lead and called to coach or whatever it may be, to mentor. So that's part of it. And I think you mentioned it a little bit, but how does, Jocko Willink has a book, Extreme Ownership. So many people play the victim, especially this generation. It's the economy is this and this is that and all these different things. It's whatever situation. Now, no matter how bad it is or whatever the situation may be, I have to take ownership of the result. I have to take the ownership of my response to it. And so you going through what you've gone through, and whether it's you personally or with your clients, how does taking ownership of the journey, taking ownership of the L's, how does that affect the way you move through life and the way that you lead others?
Yeah. So our first core value in our company is personal responsibility, right? For that reason is I can't be around anybody who's not willing to take responsibility for their situation and help themselves, right? You can't help people who aren't willing to help themselves. And this sounds kind of harsh as a coach, but for years I chased people around wanting it more for them than they wanted it for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And although I'm super compassionate and I love people and I think anybody can be successful, I'm also limited on time, space, bandwidth, resources, and I've got to put my focus on the people who want to change. Right. And this comes with a level of maturity as a coach. And again, it sounds really bad, but there's other coaches out there that can coddle and hold people's hand and tell them that it's going to be okay and everything is going to get better, when reality it's not. If I don't take responsibility for my situation, no one's coming to save me.
Right.
Government's not coming to save me. My wife's not coming to save me. My homeboys aren't coming to save me. This is a as a man or just anybody, like our life is our responsibility. And so it's everything, man. And fitness is a good way to develop that muscle of discipline, right? No pun intended, but like fitness is the ultimate discipline. And it's also the ultimate way to kind of train your mind to do hard things, right? You put yourself into a hard workout, you're building mental resilience. And so it works hand in hand. And it's like we do. I hear a lot of times there's all kind of excuses for everything. I'm busy, I don't have the money, I don't whatever, and all that's fine. If you're willing to accept that, and it's the staying where you're at is less painful than accepting that excuse, well then we'll stay where we're at. And this, again, harsh message, but I needed someone to come in my life and say, hey Jay, any excuse will do if you let it. But those excuses aren't going to be the bricks that you build your house of freedom with. Those excuses aren't going to be the bricks that you build your house of success with and abundance with. It's the personal responsibility saying, hey, this is how it is. I don't like it. I'm willing to do something about it.
Right.
And sure, I could use some support. And
Mm,
that's where I think as coaches, at least for me these days, that's where I'm coming in and saying, hey, I want to be your guide. I don't want to be your boss or your like, your drill instructor or whatever. Like, I don't have the space for that, but I want to be your guide. If you're willing to show up and do the work, just like I had to do in my life was a total wreck, right?
mm,
Coming out of addiction, even I didn't mention this, but I wasn't finished after that. Like, I didn't come out of that facility and everything go well. I had a couple years of sobriety. And then just 10 years ago, I got addicted to Adderall. And bro, that was probably one of my worst addictions I've ever had. Like, it
wow.
destroyed me, man. And this is right before I started my gym. I was in the worst position I'd ever been in. I was bankrupt. I was depressed. I was super unhealthy. And so like I could have literally laid there and died and lost my entire family and just totally deteriorated if I would have just waited around for someone to come tell me it was going to be okay.
Mm,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
But what happened is I had a heart to heart with God, and I kind of said, hey, you know what, Jay, you're way behind on your promises. You're failing miserably in every area. Your health is out of order. You're not upholding the standards that you believe you should uphold for your life. You have no integrity in your decisions. You're not showing up when you say you're going to, like, these are hard things to hear
Hmm, hmm.
and to face. But it was that reality of like being in the pit that gave me the inspiration and the desire to get on a peak. And we're constantly going through that evolution of pit to peak,
Hmm.
but it's a healthy thing, right? And that's where, as long as we're willing to say, hey, I'm in a pit, how'd I get here, what work am I going to have to do or decisions am I going to have to make to get out of here, well then we're in good shape, as long as we're going to take that personal responsibility. Otherwise, man, we leave our power in somebody else's hands, and it's just, that's a definitely a recipe for disaster.
That's awesome, man. And really, it's somebody's been listening to some Jim Rome over the years. I could tell that's
Oh
coming out.
yeah, I've
You
been
know,
all
say
over.
that OG Jim Rome was like the OG, and I could
He's
hear
the
it coming out.
man, bro.
And something you said earlier, even just kind of a side note, sidebar. Going doing network marketing, because I did network marketing for about 5 years or so. People don't understand the growth that comes from it, whether you make
Mm,
no money or not, because of the books you read, the place
yeah,
you go, the things that you do. That developed my mindset around business and duplication and understanding
yeah,
delegation and understanding how to operate. It actually made me so much better at running my studio because of the things that I grew into. And that personal development and growth and mindset, all those things started coming up even more so than just the physicality and the nutrition and things of that sort. And something I'm gonna go to that in a second. Yeah, but it's amazing to see when those things growth, and that's probably what got you more than moving into this kind of coaching realm outside of just the gym stuff. And I'm gonna come to that later. I'm gonna miss something
yeah,
that you said there. Um, you saw you got with the Adderall. A lot of times when people start on a journey of anything, whether it's good or bad, what are the first steps? What are the first things? Like I always say, coming to work out, the heaviest weight you ever lift is the front door.
yeah.
That's the heavy is making a commitment to being here. But what are those first steps on the growth and change? But if you can share, here you go. You got sober, you got clean. How did the Adderall come into your life? How did that get into? And as you said, it was worse. It was one of the worst things ever. But
Yeah.
how did you get there?
Yeah, so once I got off the really hard stuff, like back in the day, I intermittently would drink and it would turn into a disaster, and then I would quit, and then I would go for a period of time and not drink at all, and then I would, drink again. It would start out slow, and then it would lead, one thing would lead to another, and before you know it, I'm in a bar doing coke. Like I would always think I was past that. Man, it's been years since I've done any kind of hard drug. I can start drinking
Hmm.
again. I start drinking again, and it's cool. I might do it 10, 20, 100 times, but that one time when I have one too many and that switch flips,
Mm,
that's inside of me, and it still lives there, and I don't test it anymore. I don't get close to it. But when it flips, it's go time. I'm going to shut the place down. I'm going to find some other hard drug, and it's off to the races, and all bets are off, and anything I stand for takes a back seat. And that's been my experience, man. So I did that for a while on and off. Well, the Adderall, I was running an anytime. I was running a studio
yeah.
that I now own. It used to be an Anytime Fitness studio, and the owners of that studio lived in a different state. And basically, the goal was it was a partnership. Two different couples owned this gym, and they were buying up these franchises. And the goal for me was I was going to go run this gym successfully. And if I could pull it off, I would move into a regional role where I would have multiple facilities. So that's kind of what I was working for.
Gotcha.
Well, the owner and I had a conversation because I was there. She would look at the cameras and I would be there at like 6 a.m. I wasn't supposed to come in till 9 or 10. I'd still be there super late at night because the demand was so high. And it was like, no matter what I would do, they wanted a little bit more. I mean, we took the club from being in a negative place
Right.
to being in the black and producing. We hit records for personal training sales. It was doing very well, but it was just still not enough. And I have a pretty high standard for myself. So it's like, I'm going to be the best at this, and no other studio owner is going to come close. And so I was working like crazy hours. Well, she saw that and she's like, hey, Jay, I think maybe the issue is that you have ADD or ADHD. Maybe you should go see a psychiatrist and see if they can put you on medicine, because maybe if you could focus more. And I'm going, okay, but just ignore the fact that we're crushing personal training, we're crushing these numbers, whatever. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I go see a psychiatrist, and man, I'll be honest, like I knew in my soul where this was going. I'm familiar with Adderall. I mean, I was taking Ritalin and snorting it and doing all these crazy things in high school. So I knew what was going to happen, but I was just to a place in my life where I was not doing a lot of personal development. I was weak. I was vulnerable. There was a void in my life because I wasn't replacing it with God or personal development or any of those things. And I needed to fill it. And she just gave me permission to fill it. And so I went to this psychiatrist and I sat down with him and I passed the test with flying colors. My wife was there. It was a Christian counselor. Again, I got a Christian counselor giving me permission to take this drug, which I knew was going to be a bad idea.
And did you tell her about your past? Did she know?
Oh, bro.
Did she know about your past?
I don't remember, but probably not. Probably not. And I took it and they gave me Adderall 10s. I took it. I went out to a park, took the first pill, bro. It was like the ultimate euphoria, right back to where I used to be, chasing the thing again. I went right back shortly after. I mean, I can't remember exact timelines, but it was short, maybe a week. And I said, hey, told the doctor, this isn't working. They gave me 20s. I went right back shortly after. Hey, this isn't working. They gave me 30s, which is the max dose. So I had 3 30s per day. So within less than a month, I had the max dose of Adderall that you could take, and bro, it was off to the races. I started popping them things. I'd stay up all night and work. And even then, even though we were doing really well in that studio, I wasn't making anything. Like they were paying me nothing. And there was all these things of like, hey, if we just get to this point, and their sense, like they were just trying to figure it out too. So it's just one of those things, but I was struggling financially. We weren't making it. And so I felt the pressure of, I got to work more. I got to do more. How am I going to do that? I'm going to take Adderall and stay up all night. So I would do that. And bro, within about 18 months, it stole everything from me, man. I lost a bunch of weight. We went bankrupt because I was spending money. I would run out of Adderall within a week or two and then have to go buy it on the streets. And so I started buying it on the streets. And here is a guy that like, I should know better. I cleaned up my life. I've gone through all that. Bro, I got my record expunged when I was 18. 3 major, like one of my drug charges was in a drug-free zone, which I mean, it was a 15-year charge. And so I got all that expunged and got the opportunity to walk away free with no record. And here I am again, buying drugs on the streets, taking out, like doing all this stuff. So you think I would know better, but obviously it takes me a little minute to get it. So I did that. It destroyed my life. I got into a place where, I just didn't want to live anymore. And this is the segue into your question. This is how I changed my life, is I was willing to face the facts, right? Finally, after it was so bad and I knew that I was either going to kill myself, someone else, or just completely have to live in shame and guilt as a failure, as a father, a husband, I finally was willing to just look at the facts. And the facts were that I was in a really bad spot and I put myself there, and it was going to take a tremendous amount of effort and work to get out of this. But it is what it is, right? No more blaming, no more I have a disease of addiction, no more, well, look at my circumstances, no more, well, I'm only doing this to take care of my family because we're so far behind. Like, no, the facts are I'm failing. And so I'm taking a hard look at that. Okay, where do we go from here? And then the next thing was, man, I had to audit my circle. Like the people that I had started to hang around with were not going to allow me to escape this trap that I'd put myself in. And so I'm going, hey, I can't have that dude in my life. I can't have that person in my life. I got to cut this person off, which was really hard because I'm already isolated and lonely.
Right.
And now I got to cut my people off. And then so it was that. And then it was auditing programming. Every day, the thoughts that came into my mind, I had to go, man, is this from God or is this from the enemy? Like, and they were from the enemy, bro. Like heavy. I was in a dark place. And so it just came down to like, what's my thoughts? How is this going to serve me? Is this going to get me where I want to go? And so those three things over and over, continue to face the facts, continue to audit the circle, continue to audit the programming, has just really been the evolution of me going from that place of desperation to now my life looks a lot better and I'm in a much better spot.
That's awesome, man. It's so many nuggets I hope you guys pull from that. We look at, the street drugs as being the biggest thing that's going on, but it's like you got permission, legal permission to move yourself into into a darker realm than you were ever before. And even that, the reasoning, the human capacity to reason something away or reason something towards where you want to go, your goals, is scary. Probably failed to tell that doctor your past. Conveniently, I would do the same thing if I wanted it. You know what I'm saying? And because I'm doing it for my family, and I'm doing it for us, and I'm doing it for the finances, we can reason all those things away of why we take a certain path, no matter how bad it may seem on a clear mind. We can reason it away and make that decision along the way. And as you said, there's so many different things. Auditing the people, the environment. Growing up, the environment was bad. Here it is, there's certain people that make it easy. Knowing yourself, the self-awareness that you're talking about. There's certain places and people that we can't go around. Like you said, I have addictive personality. I'm the same way. So I started having sex at 11, started drinking at 12. So between alcohol, women, porn, lust, pride, those are my addictions. When I gave my life to Christ at age 24, I knew I was never the person to have one or two casual drinks. That's never been me.
Right.
It's get crap face.
Yeah.
New Year's Eve, 2 bottles of champagne. Not one not one and then another. It had to be 2. Had to have one in each hand because I'm daggone extra. So I'm drinking from 2, finish those. Next 2, finish those. Next 2. So I'm finishing 6 bottles of champagne and then drive home. I have no idea how I got home. That was regularly the way. So I'm not going to be the person that's going to take 1 or 2 casual drinks. So I have not had a sip of alcohol since 1999, December 12, 99, because I'm not the person to do that. Like you said, there's certain environments. Somebody else might be okay having a few drinks. Somebody else might be okay, smoking a little weed. I'm not that person. And because of my personality is all in or out with a lot of those different things, I have to be more cognizant of it. That's for you the same way. Like, look, I can't even be in that room, in that environment. It's just like you said, you started here and then that one hit and it just, the euphoria, the feeling, I'm back, baby.
Yep. So look, man,
that enemy's back.
The power of the circle piece, I don't want people to miss this because it's huge. It's like back in the day, I was around people doing what I was doing. Now that your story might not be that extreme. You might, if you're listening to this and you're a weight loss, you're trying to lose weight, right? And you're getting on a fitness journey. Of course, you're like, you could unplug and go, well, this whole drug thing, I can't relate to that. Well, you're in a similar battle though, because you're hanging around people that don't see the value in losing weight and in getting healthy and in taking their health back, right? They don't even understand. They're unaware of what the prize that's available if you go through that process. Yes. And so by default, they're going to either consciously or subconsciously discourage you from taking action on those things. And they're going to make it an uphill battle every turn that you make to try to make progress, because it's just not what they're working on. It's not on their radar, right? And so when we look at our circle, I could hang around people who give me permission to do those things that I used to do, and it's perfectly fine. It would be accepted as normal. Or I can surround myself, this is where coaching comes in, with either having a coach or having a community of people that are willing to say, nah, Jay, that's not you, man. There's a higher level of you. Like there's a higher version of you, and this ain't it. Like you can't do this. This is not
Yeah.
you. And then I go, oh, well, hold on. They're calling me on my stuff. Like now all of a sudden it's not normal for me to behave that way. It's not normal for me to eat that way. It's not normal for me to miss the gym. It's not normal for me to take Adderall or whatever the case is, because I'm in an environment where the expectations and the standards are different based on a different level of goals and circumstances and belief systems, right? So like,
Yes.
even if you're not struggling with drugs, but you have a habit in your life
Sugar.
that you want to
You
get
might be addicted to
sugar,
sugar.
that's it. I mean,
Mhm.
any of those things, if you look around and you go, all right, I'm the average of the 5 people that I spend the most time with. Are those 5 people on a fitness journey? Are they avoiding sugar? Are they not watching porn? Are they respectful to their spouses? If you want a better marriage, are they disciplined with their finances? If you want to get out of debt? Because I can guarantee you this. If you look around and you want to be debt free and everybody in your circle, the 5 people you spend the most time with are in debt, you're going to be in debt too.
You're gonna be the sixth one.
You're always going to be the 6th one, right? It's like the thing where the alcoholic goes into the bar to try to save all the alcoholics. And they say in AA, well, if you go to a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. Eventually, you're going to be the one that comes down to their level. You'll never be the one that raises an entire group to a different level of consciousness or behavior. So knowing that, it's good to look for support, audit your circle, find people who are on a similar journey, and start moving your way into that circle or that relationship.
That's so good. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, like at my studio, we do team personal training.
Yeah.
That's what we call it. It's your fitness family. These are people that are like-minded, that are all looking to improve their body, their mind, their spirit, their psychology, their
Yep.
emotions. They're all we're all doing that. I always say, guess what? It's easy to be a Christian on Sunday in a building when
Right.
everyone else is being a Christian.
That's it.
That is supporting your journey, but not always when at the family reunion.
Yep.
That what other folks are doing certain things that are against that. And so paying attention to the circle or even culture. From Louisiana, where there's certain ways that we eat food that's probably different from what people eat up north, right? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
It's
So
better. Definitely better.
definitely way
tastes
better.
better.
But much better. We got the best food all across. I don't care
Oh,
what
yeah.
anybody say. We got the best flavored food,
Hands
stuff like that.
down.
But once again, culture. Like I'm, in Texas, got a lot of Hispanics, a lot of Mexican, and the culture is love. Food is love.
Yeah.
It's disrespectful to not eat, grandma's sopapillas and the
Yeah.
homemade tortillas and all those things like that. You disrespectful. And of course, you start losing weight. You might have the wrong people around you. Girl, don't get too skinny.
Right.
You get too skinny, yeah, that's because you fat and you're just saying that about somebody
Right.
else.
That's
You know what I'm
right.
saying? Like literally, like, so we have this back to school program going on right now, and 8-week program, and we have coaching calls. So I get on in, I coach everybody, because it's not just about eat this and move like this. I need to help you with your relationship with food. I need to help you with your relationship with your body and the image and those goals, because sometimes we have all these stories about what is fit, what's not. And one of the ladies who's in it right now, I've been knowing her for years, great friend. She's been in and out my studio for since the beginning, since I first started. So she's an OG, going through cancer, going through stroke, going through all these different things. And she shared, she is I think, I don't know if she's the baby or the oldest, whatever it is, but of 11 kids. There's only 4 left. She's in her 60s.
Man.
I've been knowing her for years. How many times she's gone? I'm like going back to New Orleans for a funeral. Back to New Orleans for a funeral, over and over again. Back to New Orleans for a funeral. She's already lost, 7. There's 4 of them left, and she said all of them that left there, who died, all about habit and lifestyle and just not taking care of themselves. So she shared that last night, just about like, I need to do this for me. I got to be healthy enough for my grandbaby. Same thing for my mission. She got grandkids. She got this and that, and so I got to. And once again, what runs in my family? The obesity and heart disease and high blood pressure running a family. No, nobody runs in your family. That's the problem. Somebody got to run.
Right.
You're going to have to run. You have to do something to move your body. But if you hold on to the stories, as you talked about earlier, hold on to stories that our family died early. We have heart disease.
Yeah.
We have a lot of this is habit. We eat what our parents ate. We do or don't do what our parents did. We're sitting there because of our environment. So some of those things, we have to break the stories and break the mold of what's been told to us, and be the one. I always say this: you're the one. You're the one
That's
that's
it.
going to change somebody else. You're the one. Don't pass the buck to somebody else. Come Sunday and hear my pastor teach. No, you preach. You preach by your lifestyle in
Mhm.
front of them. You be the change. You be the gospel message in your lifestyle in front of them versus saying, "Oh, come to my church and hear my pastor because he's so cool or she's so
That's
cool."
right.
Nah, you the one. So us taking responsibility of our own journey, our own journey itself, and by us making changes for ourselves, we're going to be helping other people along the way. Which leads me right as I'm hearing it is your book, which
Yes,
one of my
sir.
favorite words, conquer.
Yeah.
It's one of my more than conquerors. Like conquer your calling is part of my programming. And so I don't
Mm.
know if you knew that or whatever. Oh,
I
I
didn't.
got better. I
Uh-uh.
got to get in the scrape. There they go. So
There it
this
is.
is Jay's book. I have it queued up here to drop it in his book and his website to go check him out. And I'm all out of order right now. I'm just gonna put it in now. But transform your mind, overcome your past, redefine your future. This is from Jay. I forgot. I'm not in the center. We're on both sides there.
You good. There you go.
So tell me about the inspiration, and like I said, this is kind of where you and I both have had this thing where it's about strength and fitness, and it was about for me, I was a college strength and conditioning coach. I was an athletic trainer. Been fitness and strength has all been part of things. Worked with a retirement resort, coming from working with Division I athletes at University of New Orleans to retirement individuals, and
Yep.
once again lifestyle and all these things. But in that process, we learn about ourselves, we learn about other people, and realize that there's more to it than just eat this and move like this. There's a psychology, as we talk about. There's stories. There's different things about that, and so I know that it's what is part about biblically. There's being more than a conqueror is what God calls us to be.
Yep.
So tell us about conquer me and the whole like how does this come to be?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate that. So conquer me is really the idea that, I'm the obstacle, right? I'm in my own way. It's my stories, it's my belief systems, it's my paradigms that are keeping me from living the life that I want to live. And I believe that to my core. Like the negative results that I got in my life were, of course, a result of my programming, as we started talking about this. So for me, I've been coaching for a long time, and it's been a similar evolution where I'm talking about calories. I'm talking about, the importance of resistance training. I'm talking about these things over and over and over and over again. And I kind of have this epiphany one day. It's like, listen, if these people aren't training their mind, they're not going to train their body for very long. Yes, it can be the catalyst. Like even starting with exercise can be a catalyst to changing your mindset and starting to
Mhm.
understand that, like, man, this thing is really 80% psychology. Maybe I need to pay attention to that. But I'm coaching these clients, and they're getting some results in the beginning, and I'm picking up on things related to psychology that are going to cause them to fail and self-sabotage every single time.
Right.
And it's things like their language. It's things like, them coming all out and having an all or nothing mentality where they're working out twice a day and eating
Hmm.
nothing but the perfect, whatever. And then all of a sudden they fall off and they just go off the rails. It's comparison and comparing themselves to other people and all these little things that I'm like, this is going to be a failure mechanism for you, and it's a mindset issue. And so I started having these higher level conversations of like, hey, let's forget about the perfect macros for a minute, and
Hmm.
let's look at the fact that you don't love yourself and that your self-talk is negative, and that every time you communicate you say you're going to try,
Mm.
and that you're so worried about what everybody else is doing, and you're so focused on their progress or lack thereof that you're missing out on the process that you're supposed to be going through, like, and all these
Right.
things.
Right.
And so we start having these conversations, and it's like, man, people start breaking through. Like, hey, listen, you don't have to come work out. You get to, look at
Right.
the fact
Right.
that you have two legs and two arms, and we start focusing on gratitude. And it's like all of a sudden people are going, man, I'm starting to appreciate this process a little bit more. And I made the connection of the same psychological changes that I had to make to go from being a drug addict with multiple felonies and going through all that mess to having a little more success and a little more clarity and those types of things. Is they're going through the same issues. It's the same mindset blocks and psychological blocks that they have that I once had.
Yeah.
And I'm able to identify those and start helping people knock those blocks over so that they can get on a better path. And so finally I'm like, man, this isn't really a fitness program. Like, we got to get over the conversation of, hey, we know we all need to be exercising. We know we all need to be eating a little better. Maybe you don't know every intricate detail of what that looks like, and neither do I, because there's so many listen, guys, just because we're coaches, and at least I can speak for myself because we know nutrition and we know fitness, there's a lot of different paths to get to the result that you might be after. And so for the idea that like, well, I just have to know the way, is it keto or is it paleo or is it carnivore and is it, boot camps or is it, CrossFit? Like all of that stuff can work.
Yep.
But you have to have the fundamental mindsets to allow it to work. Right? You've got to have some level of belief in yourself. You've got to have some level of organizational skills so that you can actually plan your stuff. So all this stuff is mental. And I'm like, man, I'm noticing that the clients that I'm having these conversations with are breaking through and they're having long-term success and continual progress.
Right.
So maybe I spend more time on that. And so it started out with a coaching program called Conquer Me. And I got like 10 clients and I said, hey, I'm only looking for people who are willing to go to do some inner work. And you've already kind of got the foundational piece of working out and eating better. You're like, those are some things you recognize that need to happen. We can stop talking so much about that and focus a little more on your mental state and where you're at there. And so I launched that, dude. And for a year, I ran that program and holy smokes, like the transformations that happened were night and day compared to anything else I'd ever done. And so I'm like, okay, I'm on to something. This is more my calling. I'm getting more mileage out of these types of conversations and this type of program than I am from counting people's reps and telling them how many calories they should be eating. Like at some point, we just got to get that stuff behind us. And so it started with that, and then it turned into a podcast, which was really a self-help podcast, which has grown and I'm really excited and proud of. And then it was me sitting at a table with a good friend of mine who was actually a coaching client of mine. And he goes, dude, when are you going to write the book? And I'm like, what do you mean, man? He's like, you gotta write the book. Like you've got the podcast, you've got the coaching program. You need to put these basic principles that have helped you go from the guy you were 10 years ago to the guy you are now. You need to put that in writing. Because although you think everybody knows this stuff, it can change people's lives. And so I really took that to heart, and I borrowed his belief. And I said, well, I'm not a writer. Again, the stories, right?
Stories. That's right. That's right.
I don't even know where to start. People aren't going to listen to me. They're going to think I'm prideful, like all these things.
Yeah.
And I just put all that aside and I said, hey, you know what? If no one ever reads the book, it's going to be a record for me to have of my belief systems and for my kids to be able to read and go, okay, I know what my dad stood for.
Yes.
I understand his processes. And so that's what it was, man. And the book's actually done really well. And I've gotten a lot of really good feedback on it. And so I'm excited about it. It's certainly not my life's work, right? It's
book number one, Jay. It's book number one.
Man.
There's more books coming down the line, baby.
There's definitely more books. Yeah. And so I got the first one out of the way, and I think it's great. And again, for someone starting their journey who's stuck, it could set you free. I mean, there's some really good stuff in there. I get into a lot about programming. I get into self-talk and kind of how all that works and time management and a lot of the big pieces, the big needle moving pieces that I've used to move my life forward over the last 10 years.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah,
it really, and what you said, even the book itself, this is part of your legacy. The podcast, your kid, and I have a video that someone's supposed to edit for me and get it out that I've already done and need to put it out. I won't say any names, my wife. But it's about like why to do videos, why do this? Because how much value as it is to be able to sit and listen to our grandparents, our grandfather, our great grandfather, and hear their voice and then listen to their stories, because we don't pass on stories like, in the olden days, the stories were passed down generation to generation. But I wish I could have heard his voice and listened to those particular things. Our kids get to do that. And for somebody who lost everything in Hurricane Katrina, we lost all our photos. We don't have wedding photos. We don't have a lot of my kid photos. All those stuff is gone. Because before the digital age, and then some people put stuff on CDs. We were not that savvy to take our pictures and download it and put it on CD. Nobody did that.
Ours was Rita, man. We lost all our stuff in Rita.
Right. So we went to both of them because we went from there to we left and was in Lumberton right above Beaumont. That's where we were. So we got Rita and Katrina. We got both of them. So, but that was a crazy. You lose all that kind of stuff like this lasts.
Yep.
unless of course some crazy they wipe YouTube and Facebook. But my
Right.
kids have stuff from when they were kids doing gymnastics and things of that sort. There's a part of us that needs to document our story, not just for us itself, but yeah, for the benefit of it. Like you said, your story, someone is listening to this, is going to watch this, and they're going to be like, man, I needed to hear that.
Right.
I needed that, and I need to grab this book. When I grab the book, it's going to bring in, give me more depth behind it, because
Yep.
I can relate to that story itself. And so it's awesome that you're doing it, and that's the part people don't realize, that we grow. Like I realize my like zone of genius is coaching conversations. What we're
Mm.
doing right now,
Yep.
what you figured out, and that's in the studio. But also, there's a calling to go at a different level. That's
Yep.
what I did with Lionheart. Lionheart was a calling that came out of pain, came out of grief, that came out of trauma from the loss of my mentor, and as you say, helping people go from pit to peak.
Yep.
That I'll talk about the pit of despair. In a pit of despair is where we get stuck. Where you were in those moments of the disparity is, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. It's confusion. It's fear. All these things are there, and it can be so. It feels like it's so insurmountable. It's taking your breath away. You feel strangled by it. But we know there's a level of another peak. Or we're going to willing to go to the next valley. Doesn't have to go to the pit, but can you go to the next valley? Because that's necessary for us to get to the next peak, the next mountaintop. Or there are go to the valley of the shadow of death. If it's in the
Yep.
valley, it's got to be between mountains. It's got to be between the peaks. So are you willing to go through the what it takes to get there? Something Beatrice Coolin said one time. You want to commit suicide? Go get a six-pack first, and then come tell me if you want to still
That's
commit
right.
suicide.
I love it. Yep.
It's potent, it's poignant, but it's so real. It's not about the six-pack, it's who you become. It's
Yep.
the identity you become. As you talked about earlier, the discipline is necessary for you to get that. To change your body, to transform your body, to transform your mind, your life, your income, all those things. What you become in the process is what's most important. That's going to transfer to every other area. And you and I know from training our bodies how much it crosses over to the disciplines in our spiritual walk. If I can say no to this food, and I can do it, I could go on a fast. I can take the time to read my Bible. I can take the time to do certain things, because now I have these physical disciplines that walk right on over and teach my spiritual disciplines, and they become kind of workout buddies, because now I
Yep.
become this disciplined person across the board. And so I could bring all those things and bring my stories and bring my thoughts under captivity, and so that I can walk towards that path itself. So man, it's so amazing, so amazing. One last question I have for you. I used to do this on a regular basis. I'm gonna have to bring this back. Very important question. If you were an animal or an insect, what would you be and why?
Mm. That's a great question. I think what comes to me, and this is probably super cliche, but I would say a lion. And because of the heart, the tenacity, the ability to live in the wild, to face challenges and overcome, to be ferocious and a savage, I think that'd be it, man.
I love it, love it. I can't contest against the lion. That
Yep.
definitely falls in line too. So, brother, I appreciate you. Of course, if folks, we got the link in there for your website, for the book and things like that. The podcast, or what other places that folks can connect with you, or social medias,
Yeah.
podcasts, whatever
So
it is.
so the podcast is Conquer Me Podcast. The book obviously is on Amazon, Conquer Me. I'm on Instagram at J_Soileau, which is Soileau. Same with Facebook. I'm on YouTube, all the platforms I'm there. And I want to add this too, brother, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Guys, when it comes to creating this content, and I just want to be vulnerable with you here just for a second. When I started doing this stuff, it was more of an ego flex. It was like, I want to hear myself talk.
Mm,
Right. And I want to be the guy that's on video and does the reels and has all the cool things, because that would be cool. Right. It was a way to kind of get some attention, if you will, or make myself feel needed and like that type of thing. I'm to a place now where I don't particularly love creating content anymore. Like,
mm,
right. And I've been really transparent about that. Like, I've got so much that I could be doing even right now during this conversation, that it can be hard for me to remember why I'm doing this in the first place. And here's why: is it's no longer about hearing myself talk. it's become more of a burden now. But what it's really about is it's about helping people reframe. And I understand that, again, every situation that we're in as a result of our stories. And if I can learn to reframe and develop a different perspective, then I can move out of that situation and move closer towards a peak. And so when I hear a podcast or when I hear a YouTube video and someone says something really good, that literally one statement can completely shift my mindset and cause me to see something, different story, completely different. Then all of a sudden I'm set free. I'm like, man, I'm so glad that person took the time on a Wednesday morning to record a YouTube video, because the one thing that he said when he probably didn't want to, and it was probably inconvenient, and he probably had other things to do, but that one thing that he said totally transformed my life. And so when I create these things, it's from a place of, I already know what I already know. So nothing I say makes me go, wow, man, Jay, that was really good, right? It's like, okay, this is pretty basic information. Most people should probably know this stuff, but they don't. Just like the person that I'm listening to thinks that, so that's the way it works. So my hope is that one statement, one conversation, one, whatever can help someone to shift their perspective. And that is what makes it all worth it. And that's why I do it over and over and over again. It's part of the legacy. This isn't because, I just love to get on a microphone and talk a bunch of, yeah, exactly, man. It's like, no, that ain't it. So there's something bigger to that. And so the point of all that is to say, everybody has a mess, and everybody has a message, and everybody has an audience that only will listen to their message. There's a tune, kind of like a frequency, where there's people out there that will only hear your voice. And so if you don't share the things that you've been through and how you've gotten over those things to give other people hope, we're leaving them in desperation. And so I don't think this is just for people who are on YouTube or want to create content. I think all of us should lean into the idea that we all have something to offer, and there's people out there hurting. And if we just share our gifts, those people could be majorly relieved of pain and possibly not commit suicide or go down a more destructive path.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Appreciate it, bro.
And I can hear somebody, but me, I know you.
Yeah, that's right.
Here to say everybody, you, the person who's doubting right now. It may not be a book, it may not be a podcast, but as you sitting next to someone and you feel the leading of the Holy Spirit to share your story, you share it. Yes, share you. It. Yes, you, Victoria. Yes, you, Mitch. Yes, you. All that. Whoever watching this later on. Yes, you are supposed to share your story. And I know, Victoria, you're in building that out too right now. Is part of you. You are sharing that on so much, and I get to see the glory of God on you and everything that you're doing right now. And so, thank you for sharing that. May I coach you real quick, Jay, on something?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, just something you said there, like because we're in this personal development realm, we think everybody should know this. Kind of like the reticular activating system. We hear them like, oh, everybody knows about that and knows about the color in the car. No, they don't.
They don't.
They don't know that. When you tell people to come in or just, contract your core, we take it so for granted. Like some people don't know what is my core? What about contracting? Am I bringing my shoulders up? What does that mean?
Right. That's right.
We have to explain that. My latissimus dorsi. People don't know what that is. Like we've been in the trenches so much. The only people that get tired of hearing our stuff is us.
Yep.
So keep saying it. If Aerosmith goes on tour, guess what they're going to be singing? The hits.
Yep.
They're going to be singing the hits every single time. They're probably sick and tired. Guns N' Roses, whoever it is. They're probably sick and tired of saying, rapping the same songs, singing the same songs, whatever it is. But that's what people want to hear, especially the classics. Just found out Frankie Beverly from Maze this past yesterday or this morning, whatever it was. Guess what? I'm sure that man, before I let go, he didn't play the same songs over and over again.
Yep.
I don't think he got a new album anytime soon.
That's right.
But once again, they're still doing the same stuff because this is what people need to hear.
Yep.
So part of it is, we're the only ones get tired of hearing our own voice. Other people need to hear it. And one way as far as content, because I know we always struggle. I need to come up with something new. Let us both be better at documenting our day versus finding new content. What conversation did I have with a client? What thing did I come up? What new discovery? I read this book, and then my man Jay, he said this in chapter 7. just sharing our takes, and then of course reformatting it through our own stories.
Yep.
It's one of the easiest way. I got freedom from one of my former coaches, Brian Grosso. We'll talk about that. Document your day. Just talk about what you're already doing. And because that's interesting. It's part of what we do versus I need to come up with a new esoteric conjugation
Right,
for
right.
and we do that so much because we we science and the body and all the stuff, and it gets all
we want
science
it to be profound, but it is profound. The basics are profound to a lot of people that haven't experienced that yet. So yeah.
Keep doing it, brother. And I'm proud of you, and I appreciate you so much for even showing love and all this. And of course, any way I can support you, we'll continue to keep doing that, brother.
Right back at you, bro.
All right, love you, man.
Appreciate
God bless
it,
y'all. God bless. Go hard. Peace.